Hi, welcome to the Writing Biz. Today is my guest. I have Michael Totten, who is the founder of InkLab Editing and Publishing, a prize-winning author, an award-winning journalist, and an accomplished book editor whose clients have gone on to win awards of their own. His very first book, The Road to Fatima Gate, won the Washington Institute Book Prize, and his second novel, Resurrection, was optioned for film. His latest book, Write, Edit, Publish, What Every Writer Needs to Know, but Only an Editor Will Tell You, is one of the consistently best-selling books about writing and editing and publishing. He has 10 published books to his name, and his articles and book reviews have appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlantic, the New Republic, and numerous other publications. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the business of writing.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Now, you've been in the editing and publishing business for a long time and have said that you feel that traditional publishing is broken.
Traditional publishing is broken for so many reasons. First of all, it hardly pays anything. Authors hardly make any money anymore. I mean, there's a saying that when it comes to advances, when you sell your book, that $5,000 is the new $50,000. So that right there is pretty damning. I mean, if in the past, if you wrote what was going to be expected to be a mid-list book, meaning it's not a bestseller, but it sells a respectable number of copies, they pay you $50,000 up front. And now they only pay $5,000. And with my first book, I sold my first book to a traditional publisher. They paid me $8,000. Okay, so great, I did better than average, but it's still only $8,000. And 25 years ago, it would have been $50,000. And that was back when $50,000 went a lot further than it does today. So you can see right there how heavy the deflation is. Now, one of the problems is that they only pay 10% royalties. So if you sell your book for $10 to a reader, you only get $1. And the publisher gets $9, even though you did almost all the work. The only work they're doing is, so they're doing they'll edit it, they'll pay the editor, they'll pay the cover designer, they'll get your book in stores. They won't pay for marketing unless you're already a bestseller. They hardly pay marketing for anybody. Everybody seems to think that, if a publisher sells my book, they'll market it. No, they won't. They expect you to do the marketing yourself on your own time and your own dollar. And you can tell that they want this because they ask when you write a book proposal, they want you to describe what's called your platform. So your platform is like, let's say you have 100,000 followers on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Okay, so they're thinking, great, you've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. You can sell your books to those people. But do you have 100,000 followers on Instagram? Probably not. Most people don't. And if you don't, it's a huge strike against you because publishers know, you're not going to be able to market your own book. They know they're not going to market it. So your odds of getting a book deal are pretty low. And even if they do give you one, you've got 2 weeks to succeed, okay? Because, they'll get your book in some physical stores, and it will be there for 2 weeks, and then they're going to take it off the shelf and make room for the new books coming in, because thousands of books are published every month. So you should not expect, unless you're already a best-selling author, to have publishers put your book in a bookstore and have it just be available all the time for years. That's almost certainly not going to happen. So there's part of the problem. They also say no to almost everybody who wants a book deal, and that's fine insofar as the vast majority of the manuscripts they receive are not professional quality. So it's fine that they say no to almost everybody. The problem is they say no to people they shouldn't say no to, because they have this idea now that they're not going to buy a book unless they think it has a chance of being a bestseller. If they know the book is only going to be a mid-list book, they won't buy it, even though the vast majority of books ever published are mid-list books. So they're assuming that if you write a high-quality book that is going to perform as well as most high-quality books that have ever been published, it's not good enough. They will not publish your book.
Let me ask you a question. But
Yeah.
then what about the mid-list books that do go on to be on a bestseller list? They're just lost out in the ether then.
You mean books that have sold well over a long period of time rather than making a bestseller list?
Right. Or maybe they didn't make the list immediately. So maybe somebody picked it up for a book club or something,
Oh, I
after a
see.
certain period of time.
Well,
And,
yeah, that's a good question. But what they're doing when they're thinking about this is they're forecasting in advance, where they're asking themselves, do we think that there's a chance? And it doesn't have to be a big chance because they know that most books are not going to be bestsellers because it's mathematically impossible. Because thousands of books are published every month and there can only be 100 bestsellers out of that list. So they know most books won't. But the question they ask themselves is, could it happen? And they're just guessing. They know the market really well, and they have an idea of the kinds of books that can become bestsellers, and the kinds of books that have basically no chance. And so if they think, and it's a guess that your book has basically no chance, they're just not going to publish it. And so I work with a lot of people still, a lot of writers who really want to get a traditional book deal because they want the validation of publishing a quote unquote real book. They want somebody from on high to anoint them as a real writer, and they feel like self-publishing is cheating and any hack can publish crap, and they don't want to be a hack who publishes their own crap. So they want to find a traditional publisher. And I understand this mentality perfectly well because I shared it myself. When I was writing my first book, I was really hoping to get a book deal. And I was lucky in that I did, and it was fairly easy for me. I got an agent without any trouble, and he only had to submit it to two publishers before I got a contract. But first of all, I was kind of lucky. I mean, luck does play a role. But also, I had been a professional writer for 10 years prior to this. So I was already pretty good at this. I knew what I was doing, and I had already made a name for myself. So that really did make it quite a bit easier. But for the vast majority of people who want to publish the book traditionally, they first have to find an agent. And finding an agent is an absolute nightmare. One of the reasons for this is because agents absolutely, actually, the main reason, agents do not want to hear from you. They just don't. They didn't used to have to read through all these crappy manuscripts, but now they do because publishers used to have interns or recent college graduates read what's called the slush pile, all the manuscripts that come into the office, and sift through them and find the good ones. And they got tired of doing that, so they threw it over to the agents. Now they ask the agents to do it. So the agents get hundreds or thousands of manuscripts every month, and they only are going to represent one or two of those writers. And so they have this giant pile of crap on their desk, and they know that most of it's crap. 99% of it they're going to reject, and they don't actually read these books. Okay, they're going to take a quick look at the first page, and if the first page isn't basically perfect, they're going to reject you. They're not going to read the. They're not going to read the whole. They don't have time. They don't. Nobody has time to read 1,000 books in a month. That's not even their main job. So they're trying to get through this pile of mostly crap as quickly as possible. And they're going to look at your first page and they're looking for the first chance they get to reject you and move on to the next one so that they can get through this pile and then get on with their regular job or go home for the day. So you have to write an absolutely perfect first page just to get the agent to read to page 2. And if you screw up on page 2, well, they're out. So, I mean, you've got a really high bar. You have to be basically perfect in order to get through this gauntlet. And even if you write a brilliant book, and I mean, I've worked with some people who've written some brilliant books that I would publish if I were a publisher, and they still can't break through this wall for one reason or another, because the agents just spent 6 seconds instead of 9 seconds on their manuscript, and they didn't realize that they actually had a good one, or it doesn't fit into their niche category, or they think, well, the publisher's going to reject it for some mysterious reasons because maybe it doesn't have a real chance of being a bestseller. Like, there's just all these reasons that it's almost impossible to find an agent and get a book deal. And if you do, let's say you get really lucky and you get a book deal, and let's say you get extra lucky And not only do you get the typical advance of $5,000, let's say you get a really great advance. They think that your odds of being a bestseller are excellent. They're going to pay you a $100,000 advance. Great, you've won the book publishing lottery. Okay, and then you write a second book, and they give you another $100,000 advance. If your second book doesn't sell as many copies as the first book, let's say the first book sells 10,000 copies and the second book sells 9,000 copies, your career is over. Nobody will ever publish you again. Nobody will ever want to hear from you again. They say you're only as good as your last book, and this is exactly what they mean. If you're on a downward trajectory, you're done. You're going to have to go find something else to do for a living. You have to go work at Starbucks or sell real estate or teach school or whatever. You're not going to be allowed in the publishing business anymore if you go from 10,000 books to 9,000 books. Meanwhile, if you publish that book yourself, and instead of getting 10% royalties, you get 70%, because that's what the number is, and you sell 9,000 copies, you've just earned $45,000. And your career is not over. You can do it again. Nobody can ever tell you no. You are in complete control of what you write. You get most of the money instead of a tiny little sliver of the money, even though you've done most of the work. So I recommend to everybody who works with me that they publish books themselves, and they can do better without going through the hell of looking for an agent for 2 years. They can make more money, and they can have full creative control, and they can have a career that lasts as long as they want to stay in it.
And now the resources and the services are there for you. You know, when the self-publishing first started, it was literally a Wild West.
It was.
It was basically just throwing it up somewhere and saying, oh, I
Yeah.
published a book. But that's
Yeah.
not the situation today. Today, it is a business,
Yes.
and a profitable business if you treat it like that.
Yeah, it's fully professionalized. You are competing with people who make huge amounts of money selling a very large number of books because they do everything right. Their books are good. They hire editors. They hire professional cover designers, and they market their books. They basically, what they do, what the professionals do, what I do, is everything the traditional publishing company does. You hire a professional editor. You hire a professional cover designer. You market your books. Well, traditional publishers don't market books anymore, but you need to. Because if you publish a book and the world doesn't know about it, nobody will buy it because nobody knows it exists. Amazon, I'm not sure what the actual number is, but I've seen some estimates that there are 20 million books up for sale on Amazon. 20 million. So if you throw one more book up there and nobody in the world knows about it, they're never going to find it. So you have to market your book. And if it's not professionally edited or it has a homemade book cover, God help you if you put a homemade book cover on your book. You will sink. You have no chance. Because readers, if they do happen to find your book, they'll see that, oh, this is a homemade self-published book, and they're not going to be interested in it. Now, readers don't care if a book is self-published because they don't know a book is self-published. Nobody pays attention to who the publisher is. What you need to do is not have a traditional publisher like Simon & Schuster stamp their logo on your book. What you need to do is just make sure that your book looks and is as professional as a Simon & Schuster book. That's all readers care about.
There's so many self-published books that have done remarkably well, and the writers have made much more money than they would have if they had had a traditional publisher.
That's
So,
absolutely true. They get 70% of the money instead of 10.
yeah, that's a huge difference.
Huge. And also, and here's the real reason why that matters so much. Okay, I'll tell you about my own experience with my book that we're talking about here, Write, Edit, Publish. Okay, I may have been able to get a traditional publisher to publish that, but it didn't even occur to me to do it. There's no way that I was going to submit that book to an agent and try to find a publisher, because I'm marketing the book myself because someone must, and I know that a publisher won't. So I'm marketing it. I spend $1,000 a month promoting that book using advertising. The only reason that I can afford to spend $1,000 every month promoting that book is because I earn $5 per copy. If I only earned 50 cents per copy, I would be hemorrhaging money all over the floor. I would never make my money back. So I wouldn't do it. And a traditional publisher wouldn't do it. So the book would just languish in obscurity. But that book has been a bestseller on Amazon in its category for 6 consecutive months. And that is because I'm marketing it. And I know how to I know how to write books, I know how to edit books, I know how to sell books. And I needed to have the control to do all of those things. And if I handed it to somebody else, I wouldn't have the control to do it profitably, and they wouldn't do it either. So it would just languish in obscurity. And I'm not going to I'm not going to spend a year writing a book only to have it languish in obscurity. That's what would happen if a traditional publisher published it. Now, a lot of people think the reverse is true, that, oh, if I publish my own book, it'll languish in obscurity. Well, that is usually what happens. So I don't fault people for thinking that's what's going to happen if they self-publish their book. But the reason most self-published books languish in obscurity is not because they're self-published. It's because the books are not professionally written, or they're not professionally edited, or they're not professionally designed, or they're not marketed. If you do all of those things, you do all of them correctly, you will do better publishing it yourself than if you hand it to somebody else.
So, too, I think there's some disconnect when people are thinking about marketing. They're marketing their self-published book. That means that they just do some Facebook posts and some Instagram posts and generate excitement around the book like that. They don't really consider, maybe until too late, is that they have to spend money to market, that they have to do
Yeah,
advertising, whether it's Google ads or even Facebook ads or whatever kind of ads. There's
yeah,
that piece that's there, and you have to plan for that piece.
that's right. Although I wouldn't use Google ads. Google ads have been shown not to work for books very well. So Facebook ads, and you have to try more than one ad platform, okay? Because I tried Amazon ads and I tried Facebook ads. And Amazon ads worked incredibly well for me. And Facebook ads failed completely. I got no traction with paid Facebook ads whatsoever. And huge smashing success with Amazon ads. And it partly depends on the type of book you're writing. Different types of people buy different kinds of books depending on what they're doing. If you're reading Facebook because you want to look at cat videos or food recipes or fake news or whatever it is you're doing on Facebook, you are not in the mood to buy a book. But if you're on Amazon, you are. The only reason you'd go to Amazon and browse books is because you're looking for something to read. So the Amazon ads work better because you find people when they're in the mood to buy a book and they're going to look at your book and take it seriously. I think that's the reason it works better. But it really does depend on the type of book. So, but
It's also a science to it.
yeah, and some people have better luck with Facebook ads than they do with Amazon ads, and it's kind of mysterious. But basically, what you have to do is you have to try everything and double down on what works and stop doing whatever doesn't work. And there's no single right way to do this, but you do have to spend some money. It doesn't have to be a lot. I'm spending $1,000 a month, but I don't have to. I could. I
Right.
mean, I'm running the ads. I make more money than I spend, so it's worth it. But if you don't want to take risk, you don't have to start with $1,000 a month. I only spent $100 the first month I did this. So you can set your budget whatever you want while you're learning how it works and building up a readership. You don't have to spend very much money, but the amount of money you spend cannot be zero.
Oh, I agree with that because it's a matter of making the effort. The more effort you put into it, which translate into more money you spend, the
Yeah,
better results you're going to have as long as you do it strategically
right.
and understand the platforms that you're advertising on and how to get the best traction that you can.
And there is a learning curve. I mean, before I did Amazon ads, I had absolutely no idea how to do it. It took me 2 weeks to learn how to do it, and it took me 2 weeks to get good at it. So it's not that hard. I mean, yeah, it was. And it was. I spent probably 3 hours a day on it for a month to get up to that point. So it's not nothing, but it's a lot easier than learning how to write a book professionally, which took me 10 years.
Right. You know what I call that is learning equity. When you have learning equity in your business, it's one of the most valuable investments you can make. It's
Absolutely.
taking the time to learn those things.
And then you know it forever. You don't have to pay somebody else to do it. Like you have to pay
Right.
other people to do certain things. Like you have to hire an editor because you can't edit your own books. I mean, look, I'm a writer and an editor, and yes, I do edit my own books, but then I still hand them to somebody else because I'm too close to my own work. There are things that I will never see, no matter how many times I look at it, that some other professional needs to call out and alert me to. And as far as the book covers, I'm not a book cover designer. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not a visual artist of any kind. I just don't have that skill. And most people don't. So, and if you don't, you really need to pay a professional to do it. But when it comes to marketing, that is easier. You can learn how to market your book in a couple of weeks. And so you might as well. Whereas you're not going to learn how to design professional book covers in a couple of weeks. It's not possible. You're going to have to go to school for years
Right.
to learn to do that properly.
That's an interesting way to put it. Is taking the time with those advertisement and understanding that is probably one of the easier pieces in the puzzle
Yep.
because the information's out there readily available to you from people who have successfully done it and are sharing that information, whether it's on YouTube or a book or whatever,
Yes.
that you can, take the time and pick up on. So
Yep.
it's not like design where you're kind of born with it or not.
Right. And even if you have a natural knack for it, which I don't, even if you do, it's still, you're going to have to study and practice for years to get good at it.
I had a cover designer on the other day, and one of the things that we discussed was that a good cover designer, it's not just about the design, it's about using the design to market the book. And
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
many pieces to that, how it sits on the shelf, what it
Yep.
looks next to the second book in the series. I mean, so many pieces to it
Yeah.
that you normally wouldn't even think of.
And how it looks in thumbnail size, because when you're browsing
Right,
on for books online, you only see a little 1 inch size version of it. So it
right.
has
And
to
that
be,
has to catch your eye. Yep.
yeah. And like if you don't know how to do this and you think you're gonna design your own book cover, you don't even know what you don't know.
I think
And
that's
I
true
don't
about
either.
everything.
Like I have worked with cover designer. I've actually only worked with one cover designer. One person, Kathleen Lynch, designed all 10 of my book covers, and she's absolutely fantastic. And I learned a lot from working with her on those 10 books. But and so yeah, I know things about the process and what she's doing that I didn't know before I worked with her, but she does mysterious things that I don't even understand. I mean, they work brilliantly, things that I would never think of.
It's amazing, and it's the cover designer I had on was also an interior designer, and all the pieces to that the average writer, reader doesn't even think about when they
Yep.
pick up a book or
That,
go to publish a book that makes all the difference,
yep.
you know. So that's pretty interesting. Let me ask you, I mentioned that you're the author, and you also mentioned that write, edit, publish. And I read a lot of books on writing and the business of writing and the craft, and I do highly recommend yours. Your unique view as an editor and author, it gives you the ability to put together actionable insights that would benefit anyone that is either a new author or a established author. Can you tell me what inspired you to write, edit, publish, and how it can help an author in their writing business?
Yeah, so I it occurred to me quite a long time ago that someday I might write a book about writing because I know a lot about it and I'm very experienced. But I held off for a number of reasons, but the main one was I wonder, does the world really need another book about writing? Because there's so many. And I had to ask myself seriously, do I actually have anything new to say about this? Because if you want to know how plot works, there's lots of books about plot, there's YouTube videos about plot, there's articles in writing magazines about plot. You can learn all that stuff without me. And so I just doubted that there was really any reason for me to do it. But after editing books for a number of years, I realized that actually I do have something more original to say. Because not only do I write, I also edit books. And I see the same troubled manuscripts over and over and over again. And a lot of what I see isn't in the other books about writing, and it's not in the other YouTube videos about writing. And the reason that what I see is generally not covered in craft books is because the people who write those craft books aren't editors, they're writers, and that's fine. They're good at what they do and they know what they're talking about. But they don't see the same problems over and over again. They don't see what the amateurish and semi-professional manuscripts look like. They've never seen them before. So they don't know what to cover. It doesn't even occur to them. Right? I'll just give you an example. Almost every book that lands on my desk, unless it's written by somebody who has already published books, almost every single manuscript has problems with dialogue mechanics. And by dialogue mechanics, I just mean, where do you put the words said? Like, I'm hungry, Bob said. Okay, the Bob said is the dialogue mechanics. Okay? And how do you tell readers who is speaking? How do you construct your dialogue mechanics in such a way that readers can follow along without having to stop and figure out who just said that? This is really simple mechanical stuff, and you can learn everything you need to know about how to do this properly in about 45 minutes. But none of the books about writing that I have read ever cover this. And literally everybody gets it wrong. Every single person gets this wrong, even though it's really simple. So that was one of the chapters I wrote. Like, for God's sake, I just need to put this out in the world. And that's just one example. There's lots of things in my book like this. Because what I hope is people who work with me as their editor, that they read the book first and fix all these little things before they send the manuscript to me, so that I don't have to spend my time and energy dealing with that. What I can do instead is the higher level work where I'm helping them with their plot structure and their character arcs and up-leveling their, like seeing like, okay, their skill level is, say, when it comes to dialogue, is a 7 out of 10, and I can help raise them up to an 8. But I can't spend my time and energy doing that sort of thing if I'm spending all my time and energy dealing with things like dialogue mechanics and how third-person limited viewpoint works. And that's another thing that, okay, this is not original to me. Plenty of other writers have covered how third-person limited viewpoint works. But it's another common problem that I see in most manuscripts that are written by first-time authors. They don't realize that they shouldn't head hop. Head hopping meaning where you switch your viewpoint character in the middle of a scene. Almost everybody does this. And I have to, it's my job when I see this to flag, first of all, to explain why it's not a good idea to do that. And then to point out all the instances in the manuscript where it happens so that the author can go back and fix them all. And I will do a better job for them and they will get more for their money if I don't have to spend my time doing that.
I'm a writer myself, and that's one thing I try to stay cognizant about when I'm ready to take it to an editor, giving them the best product I can give them, which is going to save me money and then time.
Yep.
And I'll end up with a better project. And a lot of people don't think that way. They're like, well, I'll have an editor fix it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the best idea. First of all, writing should be a learning experience. You should be learning to be better as you go along.
Yep.
But you're not going to get the best product if your editor is slogged down in the tiny details.
Right. And also, it's the kind of thing you can do yourself. Like, why would you pay, unless you're rich or really strapped for time, why would you pay somebody to do something that you can just do yourself? It's like hiring a housekeeper and then asking the housekeeper to put your dishes in the dishwasher. Like, you should do that yourself. And I know I don't have a housekeeper, but I know people who do, and some of the housekeepers refuse to do that sort of thing. It's a waste of their time. Like, anybody can load the dishwasher themselves. They're supposed to come over and do the deep cleaning. That's what they want to do. And it makes sense to pay somebody to do that, but it doesn't make sense to pay somebody money to put your cereal bowl in the dishwasher. Just do it yourself. It takes 2 seconds. So, yeah, I'm hoping that my clients can fix a lot of these little things themselves so I don't have to do it. But also, some of the harder things, like dialogue mechanics, is easy. Like I said, you can learn it in 45 minutes. Everything you ever need to know for your whole life, you can learn in 45 minutes. Some things are much harder. Like creating a plot that works is difficult. And there are a lot of moving parts and it's complex. And so what I hope is the, that my writers have at least a working understanding of how plot works before they send me their manuscript, so that the plot problems I do find are smaller. And sometimes, this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it happens and it just kills me inside when it does. Somebody will send me a manuscript and they truly have no idea how plot works at all. They literally just don't know the first thing about it. They've never thought about it. They've never studied it. They've never read even an article about how plot works. And they'll send me something that is so catastrophically structured that all I can do is tell them that they have to start over because it's unfixable. I mean, if your plot is truly catastrophic, and there's nothing I can do for you except teach you how to do it in a general way and send you on your way and take another crack at it and then send the book to me again. And I hate having to tell people that. It doesn't happen very often.
Is that a rare event?
Yeah, I mean, it's only about 10, maybe 10% of the time at most, where I have to tell somebody they have to start over, because most of the writers I work with do have some understanding of how plot works, and they're not going to botch it so catastrophically that there's no fixing it. That it doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes. So, but it's better if you can find and fix as many of these things yourself before you get it to me, because I can take a manuscript and I can raise it as an editor. I can raise it up 1 or 2 levels. So if you need to get up to a 10, ideally you're going to send it to me when it's at an 8 or a 9. But what I can't do, at least in one round of editing, is I cannot take a book that's at a 4 and bring it all the way up to a 10. It's not possible. Because revising a book, getting it all the way up to 10, first of all, it takes a great deal of skill. Second of all, it takes a great deal of time, and revision passes. Like all my books, I have at least 6 passes through it before it's done. I cannot write a book perfectly the first time, and it's not like I could just go back through it once and fix everything and call it good. It takes me 6 passes through it. So if you hire me as your editor, I can help you with 1 pass at a time, but we can't do all 5 in one go. So the closer you get to a 10 before you come to me, the more I'm going to enjoy the experience, because I'll be reading a better manuscript. But more importantly, for the writer, they're going to get closer to where they want to be if they do as much of the heavy lifting themselves as they can.
I write fantasy fiction, and I'm rewriting the first book of a series because things happened in the other books that just tore that book all up. So I found that myself, and I don't know if it's because I was like mentally rushing because I'm rewriting it, but there would be like this climatic event at the end of the chapter. There was no easing into the next part. So it was like climatic event, and then now we're here. There
Yeah,
was nothing in between there. So that's something I'm working on now. But it's all these little pieces. And if you haven't learned what good writing is, you don't recognize them, as what my point is. I would not have recognized that unless I knew it was a problem.
right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does. And it's really hard to see your own problems. I
It
mean,
is.
sometimes, like, it's just an example. Let me stop talking about being an editor. I'll talk about being a writer. So I have a series, and the second book in the series is, I think, the best of the trilogy. But when I got to the end, and I went back through and I cleaned it up and I revised it to the best of my ability, I wasn't sure if I liked the ending. It didn't quite feel right to me, but I wasn't sure what was wrong with it. So, or even if anything was wrong with it. I just felt uncertain about the ending. So I sent it to 3 very sophisticated readers, not editors, that wasn't ready for editing yet. These were my beta readers. So, and everybody hated the ending. And everybody hated it for different reasons. Which really, first of all, it shocked me that they all hated the ending for different reasons. But I wasn't surprised that they hated the ending, because I wasn't sure about it either. And it took me a month and a half to figure out what in the world I should do to fix it. I just was totally frozen. I had no idea how to address everybody's complaints with that ending. And a month and a half later, I just woke up one morning and everything clicked into place, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I sat down and I rewrote the ending, and it took me one day. And I sent the
It's
new ending to
amazing
everyone.
how the brain works, isn't it?
And
Your
I
brain had been working on that all that time, whether you
all
knew it
that
or
time,
not.
yep, that's the ending. That's the right ending. And I wondered to myself, well, good grief, why didn't I just write it that way in the first place? But that's because writing is hard and it's creative and there's no science to it. And a lot of it is mysterious. The subconscious mind can just chew on things for a while and then eventually figure things out. But what? So I've had this experience. So here's what I do when I edit somebody else's book. Let's say somebody's ending doesn't work. Okay, it's one thing to tell them, like my beta readers did, that they don't like the ending. But what I try to do, what I always do, is I suggest an alternate ending for them, for the writer. And partly I'm doing this so they don't get stuck for 2 months trying to figure it out. And I'm well aware that if I suggest an alternate ending, that they aren't necessarily going to use that suggestion. And I'm not the boss of them. I'm not the boss of their book. I'm not trying to come in and re-engineer their book for them. What I'm doing is I'm identifying a problem and I'm proposing a solution. Here's what often happens. Sometimes they'll like the idea and they'll use it. Other times they won't like the idea and they'll come up with something else instead to address the same problem. And that's totally fine. But the reason that I just will suggest an alternative is because it can help get them unstuck. Because instead of looking at what they don't like about their original ending, they'll look at also what they may not like about my suggested ending. And it helps them move along in their head to think outside the box, so to speak, to
Right,
get them
because it's not a
farther down the
possibility.
farther down the road from where they would be if I just told them I don't like the ending and didn't say anything else. Because it's helpful if you know your ending doesn't work, but if you don't have any idea where to even begin about how to fix it, it can be pretty demoralizing.
It's very interesting, the relationship between an author and an editor, and how that you have to really work as an editor to find authors to find editors that you can click with, because it is a relationship. It's
It
not
is.
just a business transaction.
Right.
And when
Yeah.
you're talking about something so personal as your writing, and you're being told that maybe it's not good enough, or maybe your favorite part, well, you really need to redo that because of this, you have to have a trust
Yes.
with your editor. I could tell by talking to you that you're probably very good at this.
Well, I do my best, and I know how it feels to be edited, because all 10 of my books have been edited by somebody else, and I have also before I wrote and published book and edited books, I was in journalism, and so I wrote things and magazines published them, and I've had a variety of experiences working with magazine editors, and some of them are terrific, and some of them annoyed me, and excuse me, I didn't like it when, and this is not something I ever do because I hate it and I think it's wrong. I think editors should not do this. I don't like it if I submitted a story to a magazine and the editor went and rewrote parts of it. Just rewrote it. And that is not okay. And often they wrote things because keep in mind, this was journalism, okay? This wasn't fiction. When they added material, sometimes they added things that were wrong. They were factually wrong. Like, no, what you wrote is wrong, and I know it's wrong because I reported the story and you didn't. And so what you wrote is wrong and stupid, and now I have to take it out. So, I mean, a good editor can take things out. Like if you're repeating yourself or explaining things that are obvious, like the editor should take those things out. But don't add new material. Like you can suggest new material. I've had great magazine editors who will read what I wrote and they'll see that there's a piece missing and they'll say, hey, maybe you should write a little, like, 3 paragraphs about this other thing over here that you didn't write about. And
Right.
sometimes I'll think, oh, that's a great idea, but they didn't go in and rewrite those 3 paragraphs themselves, right? So
Well,
heavy-handed editing can be extremely annoying and counterproductive, actually. So I have been on the receiving end of that. I've also had worked with magazines that have their own what they call house style, where they rewrite literally everything that every writer submits so that the voice is the same in everybody's work. That I understand why some magazines like to do that, but it feels bad as a writer when somebody does that to me, when they change my voice to their voice. I know I never do that with my writers. Never.
It's funny you bring that up. Years ago, I did a lot of content writing for businesses all across the world that to do their blog posts or whatever it was. And I had to learn to write in their voice.
Right.
And it's, I don't know if you've ever had to do that, but that is a different kind of experience.
Yes, I have.
And it was really interesting experience. But having that kind of broad view of writing from somebody else's point of view has helped me in a lot of ways.
It is an interesting mind stretching experience.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
An editor, it is my job to, because it's somebody's book, it's not my website or my magazine. It's their book, not mine. And so my job as their editor is to help them bring out their own voice and to clean it up so that their voice shines through. Like good writing is clear writing. And it should be like a clear pane of glass. And if there's smudges on the glass, then readers aren't going to enjoy it and not going to be able to see the story because the glass is smudged. So my job is to remove the smudges. It is not to replace the pane of glass with my own pane of glass and my own voice and my own style. That's not what I do. It's not what I should do. It's not what good editors do. Now, magazines, sometimes they do it and they have their reasons, fine. But it's not good practice for book editing. And a lot of
That's what
writers
an
are worried about it. Like maybe they've had this experience with magazine editors. They'll tell me like, don't replace my voice with yours. They tell me this right at the beginning. But I already know not to do that. But I suspect that they worry about it because maybe it has happened to them in the past.
Right. But that's what I think authors should look for when they're considering editors is that they are respectful of the work and will retain your voice. That
Yes.
to me would be very important, but at the same time, be able to show you where the story's not working and give you the chance to fix it and understand what the problems are. It's
Yep.
finding a good editor is not easy.
No, it's
Oh,
not. And being a good editor is not easy. It helps that I was a writer before I was an editor, I think. Because I do know what it's like to be on both sides. But I also, because I know how to do it, I know how to explain to other people how to do it. I didn't just go to school to learn how to be an editor.
that's really interesting. So let's talk about your business, InkLab.
Sure.
Um, why did you decide to open your own editing and publishing business?
So, two reasons. One is a lot of the writers I work with publish books themselves, not all of them. Probably, I don't know, 70%. They know they're going to publish their own books, and the other 30% want to find a publisher. Okay, so the majority of my writers want to publish their own books, so they want a cover designer, and I don't do that. And they're going to need an interior designer, and I can do that because it's easy. I mean, that's another thing you can learn how to do yourself. There's pretty good book design software that takes like 2 days to learn how to get good at it. So I'll tell them like you can do that yourself, but you can't do the cover yourself unless you're already a cover designer. But anyway, so they want the cover designer, and they want the interior designer, which I can do, and some of them want book marketing. And so, well, I know how to market books, but I don't want to do it for clients myself, even though I could. So
Right.
I work with people who can do those things that I either don't know how to do, like cover design, I don't know how to do that, or that I don't want to do, like book marketing. And so somebody comes to me, I can now be a one-stop shop. Not me, but my team can be a one-stop shop for them. So they don't have to ask me, like, how do I find a cover designer? And how can I market this? What am I supposed to do with this book when it's done, when it's published? I can provide those services for them. And also because I always have a waiting list. So some writers would come to me and I would tell them they're ready to go. Their book is totally done, it's ready to go, and I would tell them, "Well, I don't have a slot open for 3 or 4 months." And so usually that's okay because I think they expect that. But sometimes it's not okay. Some people are impatient or they don't want to wait that long, and once in a while my waiting list stretches out to ridiculous lengths like 6 months. I've had it be as long as 6 months before. And so I have other editors who work with me who are just as good at this as I am. So if somebody comes to me and their book's totally done and ready to go, and they don't want to wait 3 or 4 months for me, I compare them with another editor who's going to be ready a lot sooner. And then I can also add the cover design services and the book marketing service. So I don't have to turn people away. I don't like turning people away. And now I don't have to.
That's really a smart way to do it because having the collaborative effort between other people in the industry makes the whole project more cohesive.
Right. And also the other editors who work with me, who I pair writers with when they don't want to wait for me, they're good at their job, and I know that they are. First of all, I've known these people for a long time. Second, it's a job that I do every day, so I know how to evaluate if somebody's good at the job that I do every single day. So if I do turn somebody, if in the past I have to turn somebody away and just hope they could find a decent editor, and there are a lot of bad editors out there. And so I know that if I pair them with one of the other editors who work with me, that they're getting a good one.
See, it's one of the things that I started this podcast for several reasons. There is a big hole in writers understanding how to create a successful writing business. But one of those holes is finding the right people in the industry for what you need
Yeah.
because there's so many. A lot of it has to do with what you can pay for, but there's just so many people out there vying for your attention. And I hope that I can shine the light on some of the better services that are available.
Yeah. And writers should be aware. Don't hire cheap editors. Just don't do it. I mean, you get what you pay for, as with anything else. So, I mean, I have had, because people know that I can do the interior book design, okay? And it's cheap because it takes 1 day. It's not hard work and it doesn't take very long. I've had people come to me and ask me if I can do the interior design of their book. And the first thing I always ask them is, the book been edited? Because my goodness, if it hasn't been edited, I don't even want to do this job because they need to go find an editor first or hire me to do it. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody needs to edit it. And I feel ethically obligated to make sure that they know that. And so here's an experience I've had many times. I ask them, has the book been edited? And they say yes. Okay. So then I look at it. And there's no evidence to me whatsoever that any professional editor has seen this manuscript. There's like typos and comma errors in the first sentence. And I've seen this multiple times, and I'll tell them, like, I hate to break it to you, but your editor did a terrible job and missed so many things. And I'll prove it to them. But what I'll do, I'll like a sample edit. I will edit the first 5 pages and track the changes so they can see what I'm doing. And they'll see that in 5 pages alone, I just fixed 200 errors that their editor missed. And missing 200 errors in 5 pages is completely unacceptable and unprofessional. And I'll ask, like, how much did you pay this person? And they'll say something like $500. Okay, if you hire somebody to edit your book and you pay them $500, they're making minimum wage, basically, because of how long it takes. It's a lot of work to edit a book. It's not something you just do in 1 day. So you're either paying them minimum wage, which means they're bad at their job because no professional is going to work for minimum wage. Or maybe they are theoretically good at their job, but they're blowing through it so fast in order to have a respectable hourly rate that they're missing half of your mistakes. So that's what you get if you get the budget editor. You either get an unprofessional who isn't any good at their job, or you get somebody who is going to go through it so fast so they don't make minimum wage that they do a bad job. So you're just going to have to suck it up and pay professional rates for an editor. And I know it's annoying, and I'm not saying that just because I work as an editor, because I have hired editors for all my books and I pay professional rates every time. And honestly, I would rather be shot than publish a book that has not been professionally edited by somebody else. I would never do it. It's a cost
Oh,
of
no.
doing business.
See, if you're trying to build a career as a writer, that is a ridiculous way to approach things
Yeah,
because who's going to want to continue helping you build your career if your product is a wreck?
right. I mean, you're going to fail. If you can publish your own book, but if you don't do it to professional standards, you will not be successful. And that is a guarantee. Because the vast majority of self-published books do fail. And it's not because, again, it's not because they're self-published. It's because they were unprofessionally self-published. They weren't professionally edited, they weren't professionally designed, and they're not marketed. Those are the reasons they fail. So you have to fix those things. You have to do those things.
Great place to start is to read your book.
Yes, thank you.
No, you deserve all the praise for that because it is really clear cut and easy to understand. And the way that you break down things helps to turn that light on. And it also inspires you to just try to be better, to do the work.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, a lot of it's hard. Here's the thing, a lot of it's hard and a lot of it's easy. I mean, half the things I cover in my book are actually easy. The other half are really hard. Like writing dialogue is extremely difficult. Like if you aspire to write dialogue as well as the Coen brothers do in their movies, that is the work of a lifetime. But learning how to do dialogue mechanics correctly can take you 45 minutes.
that makes sense. That makes sense. I have read books myself that the dialogue has really, sometimes it just catches me. I'm like, what is going on here? Who's who? What am I
Yep.
reading? I don't even know
Oh
what
yeah. Oh yeah, and that's death for your book for a book.
it
If
is.
the if
It
the reader
is.
can't track the conversation, they're not going to read it.
You know what impresses me is that authors who have different characters from chapter to chapter and are able to keep that all together, with the different character traits and the personalities and the dialogue. To me, it's just absolutely brilliant how they can do that.
That's
And
hard too.
it's really hard.
It is. And it's hard because when readers are early on in a novel, if you introduce too many characters, readers can't keep them straight.
No,
So you
no,
got to make those people really memorable, and it's
and,
not easy to do. It's not easy to do. And editors
and the
can help.
best in the best of books like that, there's that few chapters where you're like trying to settle in and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with that. Michael, I really appreciate you taking time with me today. This has been very interesting. You have really helped to shine the light on how important editing is and also a lot of different things about the industry that's really helpful. I appreciate what you said about the difference between the traditional publishing and the self-publishing, and that the self-publishing sometimes gives you a much better chance if you do things professionally to be
Yes.
successful
That's
than
right.
going through the agenting process and the traditional publishing process.
It's a
So,
nightmare I don't wish it on anybody. The traditional gauntlet.
yeah, I don't plan on doing that. I will put all your information in the show notes and link to your book. Thank you so much for today. I wanted to ask you to give the listeners your website so they can contact you.
Oh, yeah, the website is just my name, michaeltotten.com. That's Totten. And the publishing company where we provide extra services is inklabpublishing.com.
Terrific. To learn more about the podcast and to sign up to be the first to learn when new episodes are out, please visit thewritingbiz.com. Don't forget to hit like and share and subscribe. And until next time, take what you've learned and put it to work in your own writing biz. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.